Fishes don't yawn, but reptiles do. Fetuses yawn inside the womb before they've ever taken a single breath of air. Nobody agrees on why any of this happens, but your brain has been doing it since before you were born, for a reason scientists are still arguing about. Let's start with what a yawn actually is mechanically. A yawn is an involuntary sequence. A deep inhale, a stretched open jaw held for several seconds, then a shorter exhale, almost always paired with your eyes watering and your face contorting in a way you have very little control over. The entire sequence takes about 6 seconds, and it recruits more than just your mouth. Your diaphragm, your inner ear muscles, your face, and parts of your brainstem all fire together in a single coordinated event. For most of the last century, the leading theory was simple. You yawn because you need more oxygen. Low oxygen in the blood, the theory went, triggers a big inhale to correct it. It's a clean explanation. It's also almost certainly wrong. In 1987, psychologist Robert Proven ran an experiment specifically designed to test the oxygen theory. He had participants breathe air with different oxygen and carbon dioxide concentrations, including air enriched with pure oxygen and air with elevated carbon dioxide, the exact conditions that should trigger more yawning if the oxygen theory were correct. Yawning rates didn't change, not even slightly. Proven's data quietly killed one of the most widely believed explanations in the history of yawning research. So if it's not about oxygen, what is it about? The strongest current theory has to do with your brain's temperature. In 2007, researchers Andrew Gallup and Gordon Gallup Jr. proposed something called the brain cooling hypothesis. Their idea was that a yawn functions like a tiny built-in radiator. The deep inhale of a yawn draws in a large volume of cooler air. That air flows across the sinuses and the roof of the mouth, cooling the blood vessels there. That cooled blood then flows directly toward the brain, and the stretching of the jaw during a yawn increases blood flow to the head even further, essentially flushing your brain with a small burst of cooler blood. The Gallups tested this in a genuinely clever way. They had participants hold either a warm pack or a cold pack against their forehead while watching videos of people yawning, a scenario reliably proven to trigger contagious yawning in most people. Participants holding the cold pack yawned significantly less than the warm pack group. If your brain is already being externally cooled, it apparently has less need to yawn to cool itself. This also explains something that puzzled scientists for years. Yawning follows a predictable daily and seasonal pattern. People yawn more in the morning, right after waking, when brain temperature is naturally elevated from sleep. People yawn more in warm weather than cold weather, and research on yawning frequency across different climates has found the same trend. Yawns spike specifically in temperature ranges where the outside air is cool enough to actually help cool the brain, and drop off in extreme heat when the outside air is too hot to provide any cooling benefit at all. Your yawn isn't random, it's thermostatically triggered. But this still doesn't explain the strangest part of yawning, the part almost everyone has experienced but very few people can explain. Why is it contagious? You've felt this. Someone yawns near you, and within seconds, you're yawning too, even if you weren't remotely tired a moment earlier. Even reading about yawning, or looking at a picture of someone yawning, or in some documented cases, simply thinking hard about yawning, is enough to trigger it in a large percentage of people. Proven's research found that roughly 55% of people will yawn within 5 minutes of watching someone else yawn on video, and contagious yawning isn't unique to humans. Chimpanzees yawn when they watch other chimpanzees yawn. Dogs yawn when they watch their owners yawn. In a 2008 study, researchers found that dogs yawned significantly more often after watching a human yawn than after watching a human simply open their mouth without yawning, suggesting dogs are picking up on something specific to the yawn itself, not just the mouth movement. It even works through a screen. Researchers studying yawn contagion during video calls have found that a yawn transmitted through a laptop camera still triggers the reflex in a meaningful percentage of viewers, even with the flattened resolution, delay, and distance of a video connection standing between two people. Whatever this mechanism is picking up on, it doesn't require being in the same room or even breathing the same air. A face on a screen, moving through the same 6-second sequence, is apparently enough. The leading explanation ties contagious yawning to something called mirror neurons, brain cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you watch someone else perform that same action. These neurons are thought to be part of the machinery behind empathy, the way you wince when you watch someone stub their toe or tense up when you watch someone else in a stressful situation. Your brain doesn't just observe, it rehearses. Contagious yawning appears to hijack this exact same system. And this is where the research gets genuinely strange, because contagious yawning seems to be a rough, physical measure of social closeness. A study led by Elizabeth Norcia and Ivan Palagi in 2011 found that people were significantly more likely to catch a yawn from a close friend or family member than from a stranger. Emotional closeness predicted contagion far more strongly than simply being in the same room. Some researchers have proposed that yawning may have evolved as a primitive social synchronization tool, a way for a group to coordinate arousal states together. If one member of an ancestral group yawned because they were getting tired or their brain was overheating, contagious yawning may have helped the entire group shift into the same state, at the same time useful for coordinating rest or coordinating alertness across an entire tribe without a single word being spoken. There's also a darker layer researchers have found buried in this data. People with certain conditions that affect social bonding and empathy, including some individuals on the autism spectrum and some individuals with schizophrenia, show reduced rates of contagious yawning compared to the general population. This doesn't mean contagious yawning is a diagnostic tool, but it does support the idea that this specific reflex is tangled up with the same neural circuitry responsible for social connection. There's a separate, stranger layer to this too. Doctors have long known that excessive yawning, dozens of times in a single hour, with no connection to tiredness or social contagion at all, can sometimes be an early warning sign of something else entirely. It's been documented as a symptom preceding certain types of seizures, and in some case studies, as an early indicator of reduced blood flow before a stroke or heart attack, appearing hours before more obvious symptoms show up. Nobody fully understands why the brain's cooling and arousal system would spike right before a serious cardiovascular event, but the pattern has been consistent enough that some neurologists now treat unexplained excessive yawning as a symptom worth investigating rather than dismissing, which brings us back to the fetuses. Ultrasound studies have documented yawning in the womb as early as 11 weeks into pregnancy, long before a fetus has ever needed to regulate brain temperature through breathing, and long before there's another person nearby to catch a yawn from. Some researchers believe fetal yawning may actually serve a completely different purpose, helping develop the jaw, the lungs, and the neural pathways involved in breathing before they're ever needed for real. If that's true, yawning might not have started as one single behavior with one single function at all. It might be several overlapping systems that all happen to look identical from the outside, one for brain temperature, one for social bonding, and possibly one for early neurological development, all rooted through the exact same 6-second physical sequence. So the next time you catch someone's yawn across a room, or feel one pull at your own jaw just from reading about it, understand what's actually happening. You're not simply tired. Your brain may be quietly managing its own temperature, synchronizing with the people around you, or running a reflex so old it started before you'd even taken your first breath. Nobody has fully solved this one yet, and researchers studying it today still disagree on which explanation matters most. But your body has been running the experiment on itself since before you were born, and it hasn't stopped once, not for a single day of your life.